Hello and welcome to episode 3 now of Talking Baldocks with me, Neil Baldock, and my brother.
Matt Baldock.
You're going to introduce yourself there, mate,
I
by
thought
the
you
way.
were going to introduce me there. We've had some
Good
nice
luck for you.
feedback, by the way, on the Talking Baldocks name. I've had a couple of phone calls in the week on that. So the name at least. No one's mentioned the content yet, but the name at least people like.
Well, that's a start. So, yeah, today we've decided we're going to talk about business owners in the estate agency world who are a bit confused and frustrated, really, and kind of not sure why. Um, and feel like they're wasting time and what they can do about that.
Yeah, they're working. They know they're working. They think they're working a lot. They're putting the hours in, but the results don't seem to be there. And this is one of our 7 pain points for estate agents, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, I'll jump straight in if you want and say that really for us, I mean, we've spoken about getting clarity of what you want and where you want to go, um, but it's getting clarity over what's actually happening in your business is going to take away the confusion and the frustration. And the way we've got lots of things that you need to get clarity on, and we're going to talk about finance in another episode. But today, really, to get clarity on what's actually happening in your business, you've got to have some proper dashboards and KPI monitoring systems that kind of tell you what's actually happening in the business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think KPIs sometimes send a shiver down people's spine, especially if, like us, you've been a corporate agent and you've gone out on your own, and we're you don't say not target driven, but ultimately, we're not here to hit numbers. We're here to do the job properly and earn money. But if you don't know what those targets are, and you don't set yourself KPIs, for want of a better phrase, you are going to get stuck. You're just going to run around chasing your tail, thinking, I'm working. I'm sure I'm selling things, but at the end of the month, there's no money in the bank. And also, when you depend, and that's for yourself, but also for a team. Do your team know what a good month is, what a bad month is? So obviously, we've got some very simple kind of things that we can put in place to keep. Because again, you don't, a lot of agents want to do the agency. They don't want to spend hours and hours and hours going over the figures. So, you've got quite a nice way of just almost monitoring the pulse of the business to look at it with your scorecard. But I also think it's important to, because I don't actually think a lot of estate agents know their numbers properly, or they're not tracking every metric that they actually should, really, because as estate agents, we like good news. So I think sometimes it's easy to look at the good news figures rather than looking at all the figures.
Definitely. Like, for me, I think you've made a really good point there about um, KPIs. I just want to say so, like, and the fact that people, how do you know if you're doing well as how do you know if you're not doing well enough if you don't have KPIs? And I think I'm probably going to say something a little bit controversial here, but I think agents and business owners in general are kidding themselves if they don't adopt KPIs. Now, you don't have to call it a KPI. Like you say, people might have got sick of that because of the corporate world and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a set of numbers that you're aiming for, you've got no idea whether you're doing well. You've got no idea whether what direction you're actually meant to be going in, what you're actually aiming to achieve each week. And so you end up you're actually kidding yourself, basically. So I know people might not like that, but for me, that is the reality of a business, is that there's a certain set of things that have to happen to produce the results that you want to put the pay packet in your pocket that you want. Um, so
It,
you've got to have them like it or lump it, really.
yeah, yeah. And to be honest with you, if you we want to use the same common terminology, sorry, we've used throughout this series. It's a bit like, so when we were discussing in the first episode about having clarity of what you want, we discussed really, some people put their foot on the accelerator but not have a sat nav or not have a map. So you're just driving around, you don't really know where you're going, and not tracking your numbers is a little bit like you kind of, you've got the map, you go, right, I know I'm going there, and then you put your foot on the accelerator, and then for some reason you turn the map off and you just start turning here and there, and you don't know. So you might have set out with where you want to go, but if you're not checking in every kind of mile along the way, you don't know actually if you're still heading in the right direction.
De-
um
Definitely, and I mean, you tend to find the people we speak to when they come to us with their sort of pains and their complaints of like, oh, I feel like I'm working so hard and I'm not getting anywhere, and I'm, just having a tough time. It tends to be a common kind of theme that actually, well, it's because they've got none of these kind of systems in their business, no structure within the business, and actually the structure, whilst it might feel uncomfortable to start with and getting it in place, it just makes your life easier going forward.
Exactly. And I also find with pretty much every agent I've ever spoken to about it, there's two key metrics they forget to check or skew the figure slightly. So, I mean, would it be useful maybe to run through, like on the sales side of things, what the kind of things people should be checking?
Definitely, yeah. Let's run through it, and then we'll sort of tell them how they can kind of simply do that, so it's not overwhelming.
Fine. So I mean, ultimately, you start with you start at the end, right? So you begin with the ending. So it's how much money you want to bank,
Yeah,
really. So you work out how much money you want to bank. So you need to work out your average fee. Sales, which should be fairly easy on any CRM, but if anyone doesn't know how to do it, go back, start this year, work out how many you've sold, how much money that's brought in, and divide that number by that number, and that will tell you your average fee. So once you've got your average fee and you know how much you want to bank, so for argument's sake, your average fee is £3,000 and you want to bank £30,000. That means you need 10 completions, right?
yeah,
So a lot of agents think, great, I'll sell 10 houses, but that isn't actually how it works. So if you're going to have 10 completions, you need to look at what your fall through rate is. And this is where it becomes a little bit, because you've actually got to be truthful with yourself and your business, because you might have a 40% fall through rate, but not want to, everyone likes to say, oh, I've only got 10%, but you need to actually, like you always say, Neil, you want facts, not opinions, right?
I was just about to say, and that is one of the things this does for you, because you might think your average fee is £4,000 and it's actually 3.5, and then over the compound effect of that over 10 sales is actually rather a lot of money. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You've got
exactly.
this stuff basically makes you honest with yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, so that lets you know how many. So you know how many completions you need. So then you work out your fall through rate. So that lets you know how many sales you need. Then obviously sales. So then you need to work out how many of your instructions you sell. So then you need to know how many instructions you need, and then obviously you need to look at your conversion rate, and that lets you know how many valuations you need. So valuations go to listings, listings go to sales, sales go to exchanges, exchanges complete. Now the two things in there that people get either forget or skew, it's number one, their listing conversion rate, because, and especially if you've worked at a corporate, you basically used to tweak your numbers to hit your targets, right?
Of course you did,
And
yeah.
so if what a lot of agents do is they only count the ones that ever go to market. So a lot of the time you'll have an agent, who is listing 50%, for argument's sake, of what they saw, but 25% of what they saw that didn't list didn't ever come to market. So they're saying, I've only lost 25%, so my conversion rate is 75%. But that isn't true. Your conversion rate is 50%. Because what you have to remember, especially as a business owner, you are spending money on marketing to get in front of these valuations. So they all count. Because actually, if you're saying, well, actually, no, because for my ego, I want to say that 40% of what I see never comes to market, so I haven't lost it. Why the fuck are you valuing 40% of your valuations never coming to market? Like, what is your marketing saying? Do you see what I mean? So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You need to then start looking at what lead generation you're doing and what channels you're using and stuff like that.
exactly. So number one, you have to be really honest with yourself and your valuation conversion rate. And so every valuation counts when you're putting that in the pot. And the second one, and this is the one I think most agents, 90% of agents don't think about, is your actual sales rate. A lot of agents will tell you, they think, again, opinion over fact, everything they get to the market, they sell. But that isn't true. I
That's
mean,
not true.
I
Yeah.
think Chris Watkins just put out a frightening statistic that nationally, and I don't hold too much with national stats sometimes, but 56% actually complete. We're a lot more than that, but there will be, because you will have the odd person whose life circumstances change. They decide they don't want to move. You won't always sell a house, so you will have a natural. So if you list, 10 houses, you might only agree sales on 7 of them. So you've got a 70% conversion rate. So that's the bit you have to have a look at. And then, as we say, you've got to be honest on your fall through rate, because actually, by the time you've taken your listings, dropped out what you just don't sell, and then dropped out again what falls through, the numbers are vastly different than kind of going, oh, I need 10 completions, so I need 10 listings. all of a sudden, for those 10 completions, you probably need 16 or 17 listings. And that's a big difference, you see. So yeah, they're the basic numbers to work with. I have a very basic sheet I can send to people, but you have to be honest with yourself on it.
I think that's half the problem with where people are going self-employed or starting a business. We said it like, and it's the same with us. We've been doing this 13 years now, so we've kind of learned a bit over those years. But when you first start, you start a business because you're a great lister. You start a business because you're just generally a great estate agent, and then you go into it. But it is that point about, you might have like fixed a few figures before because you had to get your area managers off your back and this, that, and the other, and you wanted to hit that bonus. But when you work for yourself, you're only kidding yourself. And we had that at the start of our business, that some people were sort of reporting figures that and I was coming in saying, well, hold on, that we haven't got the cash in the bank, and that's because of this, that, and the other. And we had to change that culture of actually, we don't work for a corporate agent anymore. Like, we just don't need, we need honest figures that actually mean something to our business. And I think a lot of people probably got to kind of get over that and that habit of what they've been doing for so many years as an employed estate agent when they sort of come and start their own business.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the beautiful thing is, and we'll come on in a second, and you can explain the really simple way to track, because again, people can get overwhelmed with numbers. But the really simple way, the beautiful thing, sorry, about having these numbers in front of you is, and you can just make a couple of simple changes. So generally, if the bottom line figures aren't there, once you've looked at it, you can go, right, well, I can do the same amount of listings and sales, but I need to increase my fee. Or if I can't increase my fee, I need to do more sales, or actually I just need to change something in my listing process so I list more, so my conversion rate's better.
That's
And
right.
then and you can just kind of see which bit. So the great thing about it is there's always about 3 or 4 things you can change, because if you change that, it affects everything. Or if you leave that but change that, that affects everything. And
It's like
and go from there.
definitely, it's like a constant running MOT of your business. So you send your car in for an MOT and you get a report saying, your brake light needs fixing, your washer fluid needs topping up, whatever needs doing at the time. And this is basically like that, constantly running for you, so that at any given point, you know what your area of focus needs to be to change the outcome that you're getting. And that's all it's about. And so I just don't think it needs to be like a scary thing. It's a reality check, basically, isn't it? It's a reality check of what's happening in the business. What do I need to do to change it? And I mean, doing it is really simple. We use a Google sheet because like everyone in the business can see it and it updates in real time. And it's just a simple dashboard, isn't it? A spreadsheet essentially. We work on a traffic light system, which is either red or green. So we've either hit the number of valuations we need, the number of instructions, etc., or we haven't. And the reason we've set it up like that is because we all know what salespeople are like. If everybody would choose amber if there was an amber option, and when you ask salespeople how many valuations you booked this month, oh well, someone's going to call me back next week and this, that, and the other, and they don't put the number in the box. So a very simple green or red, have we hit it or have we not? And the idea is we have a culture of, we don't want to see red all the time. There is going to be the odd week when a red pops up, of course, and everybody knows nobody gets fired over 1 or 2 reds in your dashboard. But what it does do is it gives you that kind of visual realization that things aren't going well here, and if we're constantly red in however many valuations we need, we know that in 3, 4, 5, 6 months time we're not going to have the cash we need, and so it all just rolls on from there.
And also helps you identify. So, like, I think I'm referencing, we call it like just the heartbeat of the business, right?
Yeah.
So, just to clarify, we have a meeting every week. So it can be updated in real time, but because we have a team here, we have a meeting every week. And the key thing is, so if you're doing it if it's just yourself, you just got to put it in there and maybe set a meeting with yourself almost, which are equally important.
Absolutely.
But make sure you review it. But the key thing that we found is, rather than as business owners us putting the figures in there, we get the team to put their own figures in there, because then then there's another level of accountability, because if you employ somebody and they are putting red figures in themselves and they're happy to keep putting red figures in and come to meetings, you don't want them in your business. And that's the part. And then it's just, it puts a little bit of the onus on them. So rather than you as the big bad boss saying you haven't hit your numbers, they're saying I haven't hit my numbers or I have hit my numbers. And so they get, if they're putting the greens in, they're getting the buzz of putting the greens in, but also they have to own up when they haven't put their numbers in there. So that's one key thing, I think, is to make sure it's your team that puts the numbers in. But the other great thing about it is you can suddenly see things. So, for instance, sales are down, sales are in the red. We'll then look up for it. We'll look, hang on a minute, valuations are in the red. Fine, we're not listing enough houses. Or valuation well exceeded target, but our sales are down. Well, then hang on a minute, are we listing them at the right price? And it just gives you a very quick indication of where the little bump in the road could be.
Where the issue is, yeah, absolutely. And it just gives people that, like I say, that focus area of what they need to concentrate on and what they need to change. And it may be you're doing, as you said, maybe you're hitting all your valuation targets all the time, but you're not getting enough listings. Well, then you got to look at your conversion rate. So just everything kind of flows. And as you know, in this business, everything flows downhill from first of all from your lead generation, then from the valuations you're booking, and it all kind of flows from there. So that's what and I think, like you say, if you haven't got a team, you should have a meeting with yourself about it once a week. Just look at it, give it a visual check, or get an accountability partner or a coach and work with someone who can help you with that as well. So it's not, it's not it shouldn't prevent you doing that just because you're a one man or woman operation at the minute. You can still just have that little check in with yourself rather than sitting there going, oh, God, I'm not making any money, or I'm not making enough money, or why aren't I getting enough listings? Everyone else is getting all these listings and I'm sitting there with none. Well, what activities have you done? And that's the other thing that's been really good for us. By doing it, if we're not, let's say, getting enough valuations, we're on a red week, we can then ask the team, like, what's been happening then? What activities have we done in order to get those valuations? And so you can drill down on that, and they'll be saying, oh, well, I didn't have enough time to go and do any canvassing this week, or any door knocking, or I haven't done my local home to cell phone out, whatever the case is. So again, and the other reason we've started doing it weekly, isn't it, is because what used to happen is we would wait until the end of a month.
Yeah.
At the end of the month is too late to change anything. So we do it weekly just for the reason that we don't want to wait a whole month and then realise, oh, we haven't done enough this month. We want to get to the end of a week and go, guys, look, this has not been a great week. We need the next week. We really do need to, we need to move this on. You get to the end of the next week, it's still not been a great week. Then we can say, guys, listen, what is going on? What's happening? What's the problems? We don't want to wait a month or 2 months or do it quarterly. It's just too long. So, like you say, it's the pulse of the heartbeat of the business, and doing it weekly just gives us that little check-in. And it doesn't actually, people might think, God, this sounds a lot, but as we've said, there's a key number of metrics in there, and there's probably for us, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 or something like that on a scorecard. So it doesn't take long to populate the data, and the meeting is really 15-minute meeting, isn't it? It's like everybody goes round, sales manager, lettings manager in our business. If it's just yourself, obviously just do it with yourself, but it's not a long kind of exercise that should be overwhelming.
No, exactly. And it's and the other thing is, if you wanted, so again, because we talk a lot about people with just working on their own or smaller teams, but if you've got bigger teams, you can even, so you might have the managers in that meeting, but for instance, you should also, I think, know how many viewings you're doing to agree a sale, or how many viewings you're doing to agree a let. And that way that enables you then to say to your negotiators or your consultants, right, we need to sell this many. This is how many viewings it's taken us. Can you do it? Lettings, it's great because if you know how many viewings you need to agree a let, then you know how many to book in your open days. So most people just doing block viewings and open days on lettings, the size of that slot. There's no point, if it's taking you 5 to agree a let, there's no point booking 20 people in. By the same token, and you'll be surprised some things aren't going as quickly as you think. So sometimes you might only be down there for an hour. You might have to be down there for an hour and a half. But it just helps you know what to do. Yeah, and it's just a very quick way to kind of spot any problems, in the property. As you said, a bit like the other day, it's like a diagnostic report, right? You plug the computer in and it tells you, look, it's your left wheel that's flat, or I don't actually know a lot about cars, so I can't say a lot about that. Your windscreen wiper's gone.
Neither
Right?
do I, but I don't know why I
Yeah,
picked the MOT analogy. But yeah, but it's also like we've spoke to so many agents who the constant kind of answer when you say like how's business, everyone goes, yeah, it's fantastic. Obviously, that's the standard answer. But then
yeah,
when people start being honest, everybody says, oh, it's all right, but I've got a cash flow problem. And actually, some of the businesses we look at, it turns out they haven't got a cash flow problem; they've got a sales problem. So,
absolutely.
and then the way to fix that is, well, everything we've discussed and going backwards. So, yeah, I think it's just numbers don't need to be scary. Do it in a simple format. Do it regularly. Check it regularly, and it just makes life a lot easier to run your business in general. To be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And get your team to do it because A, you get their input, and B, you haven't got to do all the work then. So it doesn't have to be a lot of work for you. You're paying people, get them to do it as well, ultimately. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I say I'm happy to share the thing we spoke about earlier with the numbers. I think agents should know, and I'm sure if anybody wants, you'll share them an example scorecard. They can we can run them through that.
Exactly. Yeah. So if anybody needs any help with that, just give Matt or I a shout on LinkedIn, or you can find us all over social media. The other thing I just want to plug a little bit is our YouTube channel, the Baldock Brothers YouTube channel. If you just Google Baldock Brothers YouTube, you'll find it. But this podcast goes on there in video format. It also goes on there as audio, and it's also available on Apple podcasts. Forgot the word then, but yeah, just if you're liking the content we're putting out and you want to see some more of it, just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah,
I've never got to say that before. So yeah, like and subscribe, you bastards.
yeah, and yeah. If anybody finds Matt offensive, then just let me know, and I'll go to the office next door and give him a slap. But no, great. Anybody needs any help with that, get in touch with us, and we shall be back next week for another episode.
Goodbye.
See you later, everybody.